Hey guys, Dave and Jamieleigh Womach here from BirdTricks. Today we're in southern Idaho at a little retreat where we are getting to work with Marshall radio telemetry again, really going into more uses of telemetry, but also how you can use telemetry with your GPS unit. There's a surprise there for you.
So I'm going to be put through the ringers today because I often rely on Dave. He just kind of takes the lead on all of our equipment and he got to know it first, so I tend to definitely lean on him and not really use this equipment so much for myself. And so today everybody decided they would make me be able to use this to find everything, which we did 2 years ago when we first met Marshall's because I was very intimidated by this equipment and I was like, I don't know that I can use this. And so in order to prove that I could and I was capable, they hid some of these transmitters around their facility and I was able to find them. That was 2 years ago, and ever since getting into them again, I just kind of let Dave take the lead. So today is my time.
So it's basically 3 games we're going to play to help Jamie learn how to use this equipment, but keep in mind the telemetry weighing around, was it 5 grams?
3 grams.
3 grams for the telemetry. This is better for some conures. Some galahs will use this, whereas some galahs might not be as tolerant to the GPS, and then you get in the GPS for larger birds. But oftentimes telemetry, I think, is overlooked, but the cool thing you're going to find from this game is how you can actually, let's say your phone battery dies or a piece of your equipment didn't get charged fully, you can still use telemetry to track your bird with GPS. So we're going to have some really fun games here to show how easy it actually is and how short that learning curve can be.
And I think what I learned today especially is, or what I'm going to learn today, is just how accurate, much more accurate the telemetry is in finding things than the GPS. The GPS, I've kind of learned, gives you kind of a section to find your bird, but this really dials it into a much smaller area. So
and more of a 3-dimensional track,
yeah,
as opposed to just a top-down view of the 25-foot diameter that your bird might be. This will really dial it into within a foot of where your bird is.
Yeah, so we always brag about GPS, but today it's all about telemetry. Just left me on my own. You're over here, man.
All right. So, do you want to do you want a milk crate to stand on there? Here, let me just get a real close shot.
And it's all about God.
Risk management.
Yeah, I'm trying not to go this.
You're
right.
good.
Yeah, all this
right.
is usable. That's great outtake material right there.
It's
I'm
more
the one
intimidating.
that's gonna find the freaking transmitters, man.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's a lot of pressure there. So with free flying, you always want to have a means to recover your bird should something go awry. So this is part of risk mitigation. And there's 2 types of products that you can use. There's GPS systems and there's radio direction finding, also known as traditional telemetry or beeping telemetry. So we're out here in Idaho today and we've hidden a few transmitters out in an open setting, and we're going to have Jamie come in and use a Phil Marshall direction finding receiver to actually track into the beeping radio signal coming out of those transmitters. So we've hit them in a couple realistic scenarios and a couple little tricks in there to make it a little bit more interesting that you as an actual user would actually or could possibly encounter in the field. So we're going to go out and do that right now.
So the main thing we want to emphasize with this video is doing all of this before you have the need for doing all of this. So if you're like me and you don't work well under pressure, you're going to want to have done this before you have the pressure of needing to do this, to actually finding your bird and having all of those emotions on you when that actually happens. So please, 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 we can't stress the importance enough of doing this before you actually need it.
So for the radio direction finding component, or the beeping component, we're going to use the Phil Marshall direction finding receiver right here. So simple to use. First thing we're going to do is turn it on by just turning the volume knob up. Then we're going to need to deploy its directional antenna, which is done by pushing this little, we call it the slide. That'll deploy your front and rear elements. And we lift the center 2 out. Now we're ready to track. Most important is we're going to need to select the frequency of the transmitter. So if you're using a GPS transmitter, you will have set that in the GPS app. If you're using one of these beeping telemetry transmitters, this one here is our micro transmitter. the frequency is written on the inside there. So this particular one is 434, 425. These are all unique, so you'll want to select the one that you have on your bird. So I believe the first one we're going to track into is 055. So I've turned it on, I've selected the frequency of the specific transmitter that I need to track down. Now this range switch over here, or attenuator, far, medium, and near, you always want to be on the quietest setting that you can still hear the transmitter. So I'm going to turn it all the way up on near. And that's barely loud enough, so I think I'm going to go up to medium. And that's actually pretty good there. So when I'm pointing the receiver at the transmitter, the signal will get louder. And when I point away, the signal will get quieter. So that's the entire premise on which this system works. Go to where the beep is loudest.
No pressure.
So what Jamie is doing here is always what you want to do is get your bearing. You should actually spin around in a 360-degree circle so that you find where the strongest signal is. Because generally you'll have, in radio terms, two lobes, one in the front and one in the back. You want to make sure you're not tracking exactly backwards, if that makes sense. So always important to spin in a complete circle.
Yeah, I feel
you go,
stuck.
the weaker it will get.
So see how you're...
So I need to get out of the hole?
Yep. One of the most challenging conditions is if your bird goes down around something that's metallic.
Yeah.
So a fence, a metal building, a former grain silo. What that's going to do, it's metal objects act as basically a mirror for radio signals. So it'll bounce that signal off of it. So when you start getting close to it, you can pick up bounce signals and not necessarily the direct signal from the transmitter itself.
Okay, so that's why I'm seeing the like jabs go really high by the silos. Holy cow.
You could be tracking the direct signal here. It's hard to tell. But if it starts changing direction on you, that means you're tracking the bounce signal.
It's like...
So I would come away from the silo, maybe
Okay.
over to the middle of the road so you're not right next to it,
Okay.
and then do another circle and see which direction you think it is.
Whoa. Whoa.
So we said do a full circle there.
So right there, this is called the front to back ratio of the receiver or the antenna. But the direct signal, you'll get two lobes, one significantly stronger, but direct and
This is
180
super
degrees off for
strong.
the two signals.
Yeah, this way is super strong.
Okay, let's go that way.
How do you
We're getting-
explain
Holy
that
cow.
front and rear thing again? Well, we'll do it after this.
Okay. Another really important thing, right now, we can perceive with our ears the signal has gotten significantly stronger. So if you zoom in and you look at the meter there, it's pegging all the way over to a 10.
Yeah.
Basically, it's off the scale. So you can't tell if your signal strength is at a 10, a 20, a 40, because you're off the scale. So what you need to do first is turn down the volume so that the meter at the strongest never goes over a 10. Okay, now
Better?
you should be able to perceive a difference in both volume and how much movement you get on the meter.
Oh yeah, okay.
Also in double volume is half the distance. This is more as you're walking in to the transmitter. When you get a doubling of volume, that means
Yeah.
you've covered half the distance to the bird. And as it doubles again, half the distance, doubles again, half the distance. So it'll get progressively louder the closer you get to the actual transmitter of the bird.
Okay.
So here, where you had a really strong signal and then
Yeah.
it got weak, again, a metal structure will block signal and bounce signal.
Okay, so should I go like through the metal structures and try to do it from over on that side?
That's
or
a very good
am I
instinct.
going to get the same? Holy cow. Ah! I found it! Ah! Woo! Yeah.
So if I rotate it in my hand, strongest signal is like that. Weakest signal is like this. And it'll be a little bit stronger backwards than it is on the sides. So
Interesting.
so this is why you always want to do this full 360-degree revolution, because a lot of people will get on that backwards lobe and think, oh, this is the strongest one, and end up walking in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So the 360 is to always make sure that you're getting that front lobe off of the antenna and not the back lobe.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Sweet. So let's switch it to the next frequency and use those skills to build on that.
025.
Okay, so remember what he said. So you're gonna go, you wanna avoid being in little valleys.
Yeah, that sucked. I lost everything.
And so if you lose it, go another spot into another 360.
Okay.
So do you hear anything on 025 right now?
No.
So you need to change your range setting to, there you go.
I'll go this way. It's the only way it's getting anything. Whoa.
So Jamie has just walked in and noticed that the signal went from getting louder and louder and louder to it started getting weaker, which is why she stopped. Now she's doing the correct 360 degree. Now one very interesting thing with and this is a big difference between the GPS and the radio direction finding, is that the GPS is going to give you kind of a circle of maybe 25-30 feet of here my bird is. The direction finding signals are very, very precise down to like the last couple of feet. And one real advantage they have is you can go up and down with the receiver and see if it gets stronger. Let's say if your bird landed in a tree versus being on the ground. When you're close to it, you can perceive those differences. If the bird was directly above you sitting in a tree, you could get an exact fix that way.
It's right there.
Okay. Now one other thing, you can also, by rotating your wrist, you can see the orientation of how the bird is sitting. If that antenna is vertical, when you're pointing at it, it's going to be stronger, versus if they're in flight and the antenna is horizontal, you can tell that's called polarization, but you can tell the orientation of the bird based on the strength of the signal coming out.
That's like the strongest. You guys making me go into the haystack? What? No,
So we're going to make you do this the hard way. Is if you can't see it over here, I'd probably go on to the other side and see if it's, you know, it may not even be in these hay bales.
yeah, because just plain at the haystack. Dang it. What the hell? Oh! Found it! I'm like, it's here. I can't see it.
So some of the takeaways, what did you learn from that experience?
I didn't think about going up until my sight was literally blocked with the hay. And then I was like, well, what if the bird's on top of the haystack out of sight? And yeah, when I went up, it got louder, and I just kind of found myself like stuck there. So when you were like, go to the other side, which is what I naturally did with the silos, but I didn't naturally do it here because I was just like, if I stare at it long enough.
Yep.
So yeah, and then realizing, you know, birds going high versus low, and you asking, is it lower, is it higher? And just focusing it in to where exactly it is. I knew it was there, I just knew I couldn't see it. So
Yep.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so some bird species have a natural tendency to hide. So if we were tracking a falcon, they would be down low trying to be covered. So
Okay.
they would tend to be tucked up next to a structure or a pile of hay like this. If we're tracking, you know, maybe it's a juvenile parrot that's just landed on this, they're going
Yeah.
to crash land onto the biggest runway humanly possible up
Yes.
there. So with this type of technology and this tool, you can tell exactly where your bird is.
That was so cool. That was a harder one. It was good. Well,
And if you
back
had a
to
real
when I-
parrot, I'm sure it would be way more vocal as you've approached and you're hearing it calling out. to you.
Better be.
Not
Unless it's
always.
Not
CRESSI.
always. Okay.
Yeah, I actually was trying to figure out like what you guys would have done, and I kept thinking maybe you shoved it in a crevice, and I got so fixated on that and what you guys would have done versus just going for what the bird would have done, because that's what your whole thought process was.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a cool one. I like the fact of like looking up and down. That was distinctive for me, that it was up high.
As opposed to GPS is like, well, it's in this area.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think always taking kind of like a back seat to you, because you're always number one on the scene, and I think I'm used to looking under that circumstance, but not being number one. Number one has a little bit more pressure, and so I wasn't just naturally being like, where is this stuffed animal? I was just more so like, beep, beep, beep.
Okay, so next scenario is the bird lost its tail feather with the GPS unit on it.
Okay, so this next scenario a little bit more challenging. So let's say we've got a transmitter mounted on a tail feather and that's been molted mid-flight. So you've recovered the bird hopefully at this point.
Okay.
But now you've got a very expensive piece of technology that's sitting out in the field and you want to go recover that. A very important piece of equipment to retrieve.
Oh boy.
So that's what we're going to go do. So you're going to be looking for a very small thing somewhere.
And let's add to the complexity.
Okay.
Since it is GPS, but your phone battery died.
So one of the important things that we did designing our GPS transmitters is to put radio direction finding technology inside the same transmitter that's sending out the GPS. So GPS has got a lot of benefits and a few limitations. One of them, it relies on 3 pieces of equipment. So the transmitter, your pocket link, and then the phone. So let's say in this scenario, our phone battery has died. You know, I've been on too much today and battery's dead. I'm out in the field, but I've got my field marshal here with me. So we're going to track into the beeping telemetry signal coming out of that GPS transmitter with the field marshal. The other advantage that the radio direction finding signal has is it's very, very pinpoint. So if it's come off and it's stuck in the grass somewhere or something like that, with GPS we might have a 25-foot diameter circle that we're searching in. This will be accurate down to the last few feet.
Okay. Ah! It's gonna be tiny. Okay. All right.
What are you thinking so far?
It's always way more intimidating than it actually is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I built it up in my head. I was like, I'm gonna look so stupid, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And then you're able to do it. You do have to think logically though. That's hard for me. Okay. I'm getting a really strong signal this way.
So one of the, I won't call it rookie mistakes, but the natural tendency of new users is to be very slow and deliberate. So in a situation where I want to recover my bird, the bird's on the ground and could potentially be in danger. We're out here in rural Idaho, maybe there's a fox, maybe there's a predatory animal that might come in, a coyote, something like that. So speed is of the essence.
Okay.
So generally, you should walk about 3 times faster than your natural instinct. So you should just be going with authority and swinging it as you're walking.
Oh, okay.
Because the distance you have to cover is probably significantly further than you think.
Okay. Should I go to medium setting now
If you're
because
getting
it's really
a pounding
pinging?
signal, then
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa.
So if I was in a situation like this,
Yeah.
the male tendency will be to just barrel straight through. The more thoughtful way is to go around and kind of triangulate and point in to where the signal may be coming from.
Jeez. Oh. Yeah.
We're good to point it.
So here's a situation, it could be in the tree above you, it could be on the grass below you.
Ooh. I think it's on the ground. Ooh. Yes! Woo! Sweet! Feeling pretty confident. Sweet!
So just to recap a little bit about what we've learned. So we're with Jamie, who has predominantly not been the primary user of this equipment. So this has taken us, you know, we've been doing some filming, but about 15-20 minutes or so. And the amount of progression that I've just witnessed in what you've been doing, and the confidence and the speed at which you were able to find this third transmitter, I mean, it's really not that hard to do.
No.
But this is exactly why we always want to come out here, practice when we're not stressed, when we don't have a bird that's on the wing that we need to do a recovery, and just amazing to see that quick a progression.
Yeah,
great job.
Thank you. That was super cool. Just learning that you can walk normal and just go like this, and you don't have to take every little step and reevaluate was awesome. That was fun.
So unlike the traditional beeping only transmitters that have their frequency either laser marked on the outside or written on the inside of the transmitter, the GPS transmitter, these are actually user configurable, what frequency that you'll put in on your field marshal there, and that's set inside the AeroVision app. Once you have a transmitter running, your pocket link going, connected to the AeroVision app on your phone, you simply swipe up, and then on the bottom of the screen where the transmitter number is, there's a beeping frequency in there, and that's where you set it. By default, they all come at 434.005, and that's what this one is set to, and we tracked on.
Okay. So I think the biggest things that I learned from finding the first one to the third one was that first one I was getting thrown off by everything. So when I was in that lull, and you're like, gotta get yourself up out of there, I was stuck because I was like, I suddenly lost my signal and I didn't know where to go, and I felt like every direction was wrong, and it wasn't. It was any direction was right just to get up out of that hole. And then the silos also really threw me off because I felt like I was just standing at the silo going beep, 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 and not understanding what to do or where to go from there as well. And then I think with the second one, learning to go up and down is what made this one so naturally easy. It was like, I know it's not up, I know that it's definitely down, and then being able to look, because the second one I also wasn't looking, I was just listening. So every single one just like progressed, and this one was cool. And then learning that you can just walk normal. I was like, my biggest takeaway was like, hey, speed up, walk normal, your bird's in trouble, like move.
Yep.
And just being able to do it this way versus stopping and trying to do the circles all the time is really helpful to just barely go and walk, and yeah, it's really productive.
So to Jamie's first or second point there about being stuck in a null or down low,
Yeah.
so having elevation above the transmitter. So this was a relatively close track down scenario here, but let's say your bird, you know, there's 20-mile-an-hour winds, catches a tailwind and blows, you know, 2 miles downwind. If the bird went down behind a little hillside or something like that, that depression is also going to block the signal getting to you. So if you ever get in a situation where you're not getting a signal, your first thing to do is to get high.
Okay.
And I mean that literally. We want to go climb either a building, we want to go up on a hillside, something like that, so that you can gain elevation, because the higher you are, the more line of sight that you have to that transmitter, and that will increase the tracking range.
Yep, that helped immediately. Hey guys, if you find yourself wanting to get GPS or telemetry for your free-flying parrot, check out birdtricksgps.com for more information, video tutorials, and how to use this on your bird in the field.
Okay, smile. Cool. Thank you. Yes.
That's enough, that's enough. No more paparazzi.